This is Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society of BC, brought to you by Sitka Game. Come along as we bring conversations that matter to you into the high alpine.
Well, Thomas, how's it going?
It's going well. Going well. How are you guys?
Good, good. How about you, Kyle?
Well, it's we're rolling in November, right? So I don't know, it's good, I guess. I haven't been out that. Yeah, I have to say you're a freaking inspiration, dude. I look at what you're doing on social and it's like, yeah, this guy gets after it. And yeah, very cool, very cool lifestyle, buddy. Really nice.
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate it. Mostly just getting lucky more than anything. So
I'd say getting pretty damn lucky sometimes. It's got to be a catch somewhere, right?
well, I think the catch is just chasing my dad around as fast as I can for the most part. So he's the guy that raised me to be this way. So that's where I get that, I think.
Yeah, so I guess pretty safe to say hunting's a family tradition for you.
Yep. Yeah, it has been since before I could walk, really. I think he had me in the bear stand shooting my first black bear the day after my fourth birthday. So I was 4 and 1 day old, leaning over the 12 gauge.
Holy smokes! What's that? Pardon my ignorance on Alaska, but what's the age any age you can start hunting up there?
Yeah,
I
you
guess?
can hunt underneath your dad's hunting license until, oh man, I think you have to start having your own when you're, I want to say 14 or 16. You have to have your own license, but you can hunt underneath your parent or guardian up until then. So
Okay, cool. Yeah, for us, it's 10 years old. You can get your own license or hunt under your parent or guardians.
oh, right on, cool. Yeah, I remember having to wait till I was like 13 or 14 to go to Montana to hunt because of the age restriction. We had some friends down there, so that was always a kind of different for me because I just grew up doing it.
Yeah, fair enough. So I guess that would probably what your earliest memory of going hunting with your dad. Like, do you remember how much of that do you actually remember? Because your first animal is pretty significant.
I remember bits and pieces of it, and then we got video footage of it as well. But I can remember leaning over the shotgun. My dad's got the butt of it. He's aiming. He's got the rifle or the shotgun barrel kind of between his knees, and he's holding on to the butt. And I'm leaning over the top. And I remember having to ask him, Dad, you have to let me aim because he had it so locked solid that I couldn't move the shotgun at all. So I remember that part of it, and then having the video footage because he's filming in one hand, holding the butt the other hand, and has me like over his lap. So I remember asking him, Dad, you have to let me aim, and you can watch the video. You never hear any of that part. So I know that's my own memory and not from rewatching footage from as an adult.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't even know if I was shooting a 22 yet at 4. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, Red Ryder from, young as I could hold it, Red Ryder BB gun, and it really doesn't get much different when you go from something like that to the next step up. But
All aims the same, just feels a little different in the shoulder.
yep, exactly.
Awesome. So being you're born and raised your whole life in Alaska then?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, I don't think you'll ever drag me out of here either.
That's that's fair. That's fair. So like I only follow you on social media and you show some pretty cool stuff and something happened this year that I kind of want to dive into. I think it was this year anyways. Your dad took, did I read it correctly, his 40th Dall sheep?
Yeah, that's correct. He's been hunting Dall sheep now for 45 years, and he took his first one when he was 16. And at that time, he fell in love with it and killed 27 years in a row. So he did not miss a sheep 27 years in a row from the first one at 16 up until I don't know what that math works out to be. Probably when I started going. But yeah, that was pretty special. I'm blessed to have such a hardcore sheep hunter partner and a dad at the same time, and getting to do that and pack for him and was just a great experience. But yeah, just growing up in the sheep mountains, as soon as I was old enough to go, it's always just that's been the major focus for us every single year. It's we're sheep hunters first, and everything else comes second to that. So it was pretty cool.
So if your old man's still getting after it like that, what kind of like what style of hunting are you doing? Like, let's walk through this 40th ram. That's
Well, the the number one thing is my dad's a bush pilot, super cub pilot, and
okay.
he has been for 30 years. So I think he was flying in the back seat of a cub in his mid 20s and flying in the front seat. I don't, scrap to get, had to borrow like 5 grand from a friend and put together, dirt floor poor type guy, but had an airplane to live in basically. So that's the biggest thing is growing up in the back seat of a cub for sheep hunting, especially that's the best way to do it. And then over the years, really learning how to shoot big sheep and letting sheep grow up and having that as a goal to kill big rams. Like growing up with my dad as a mentor and somebody that's focused on that for a long time definitely helps. So we start in the cub and we're hunting areas that we've been hunting for. In some cases, my dad's been taking rams off the same mountain since the late 90s and taking a lot of big sheep off of it. But it's finding spots that are holding enough sheep where you can get some good genetics, but aren't so populated that guides or other guys are picking on them. So a lot of times we'll hunt mountains where we have one shooter ram for the entire year. Like there's not another. We don't, we're letting sheep get fully mature before we think we can, take that ram out of the herd, or wait until he's at least real old and moving slow, where you can tell, okay, this ram's an old ram. We're going for 40 or 10 years older. And so sometimes we don't have a sheep that qualifies. Like this year, where our one spot's really been hammered by a guide the last 5 years, and so there's just not any old sheep alive anymore, which is unfortunate. Which kind of how this 40th ram came up was a sheep that we wouldn't normally take, but being one of the only legal rams on the hill, which is unfortunate. So this one spot that we have is kind of drying up, but it's basically farming sheep at different spots and keeping an eye on them year after year and hoping they make it through predation and hoping nobody else finds them, and having spots up on top of the mountain that we can land on because my dad's such a good pilot. So this one was one of those lucky scenarios where we're landing on top of the mountain, and out of this whole range of hills, they're on that same ridge line that we're landing on basically. So this was the easiest sheep we've ever taken ever, like within 1,000 yards of the tent. So it was kind of another thing where we'd rather be lucky than good, but at the same time, we're lucky because he's been doing it for so long, and we've got these spots, and we've got sheep that we're farming or trying to, or a spot like this where we're just taking a sheep that we think we can get to, and that's a legal ram because there's not anything left, unfortunately. But
Man, that's sign me up. Get me to the top of the mountain before I start.
yeah.
You're talking about age and making sure they're mature, and how important is the conservation aspect for you? Because it sounds like you guys are doing it right if you're able to go to the same area and keep harvesting good rams.
Yeah, if you're lucky enough, where a situation like this one spot where you don't have somebody come in and wipe them all out in a matter of a few years, then you can be selective and try to grow the right genetic sheep up until the point where they're going to be a B and C head, hopefully. But what your main focus is just making sure they get old enough. Some rams will never make it genetics wise. If they're not 40 inches by 6, if they're not close to 40 inches by 6, they're never going to be 40 inches. So it's kind of tough scenario when you might not have the genetics, or you might not let the sheep get that old. But that's what we try to focus on is 40 or 10, just depending on if they make it to 40 before that or not.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, love it. That's what we like to hear, being in the sheep world,
Yeah.
doing everything right. What constitutes a legal ram in Alaska?
So 8 years old if you can count your annular rings or full curl, and you see a lot of sheep on the internet these days, you're looking at the photos, you're like, I mean, I don't know how you're calling that ram full curl. Is he getting the photo on Facebook before they get it to Fish and Game and get it sealed, or what? But so yeah, the full curl or 8 years old, and you see a lot of double or double broomed ram is legal. I'm trying to remember if a single broomed side is. I think it is. It can be broomed or full curl to be a legal sheep. But we're not. I mean, most of the time we're not shooting a broomed ram that's under full curl. We're not shooting a ram that we know is not full curl. We're trying to shoot these old mature rams if they're there.
Yeah, that's good. That's some very similar to what our restrictions are.
Yeah.
Eight or full curl is what we got to go by for our thin horns, anyways, and our big horns are different depending on where you're at. Nice.
Yeah, imagine. And this 40th ram of my dad's was one we wouldn't have taken if it wasn't number 40, basically, and if it was in a situation where we didn't have a guide hitting the same hill for the last 4 or 5 years, we probably would have let him go anyways. We would have had a bigger ram there somewhere on the mountain, but that was the biggest sheep left. And my dad's on 2 titanium hips. So he's 61, 2 titanium hips, and he's at ram number 39. And this one's standing, 1,500 yards from the airplane. Like makes it pretty easy choice.
That's still doing it at that age with those hips. Kudos to him, man.
Yeah, pretty lucky to have such a goer.
Yeah, no doubt. That's one heck of an influence to grow up with, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, it definitely is.
So
Thomas, sorry, Greg. I just wondering, what did he like? What? How old was he, and how long was he?
So this ram, man, I think this sheep was 7. I think we called him 7.5, but he was 36.5 full curl sheep. Just a sheep. Wasn't ever going to be a 40-inch ram or a whopper or anything. Didn't have the mass, didn't quite have the genetics for it, and just a sheep that was left on the hill after getting chased the last 3 or 4 years, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, still a great ram for sure.
Yep, definitely. Especially that close to the airplane. Hard to take them up. Sheep meat's so good too,
Yeah, for sure. That's got to be up there as one of your most memorable hunts, I'd imagine. Just being with your dad and getting the 40th, or you got one that sticks out to you more?
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have a bunch, but that one will be in the memory bank for a while, that's for sure. I think probably my second ram, my biggest sheep I've taken, I was 14. That story kind of sticks in my mind real well too, because he tricked me a bit. We're up there with my dad's good longtime hunting partner, and we've had this ram. We've been watching this ram for a couple years, and get an opportunity where we know where he's been living, and we're day and a half into hiking to kind of to the place where he's been living, and we know he lives in this one big bowl that's real gnarly, lots of escape terrain and stuff like that. And so the whole plan going into this hunt was my dad's trying to kill. He's trying to kill the new number 1 Pope and Young in the world with a bow. We think, okay, this sheep might make it. It's one of those you think he's going to be a BNC ram, but you're not really quite sure, just because you haven't seen him real close on the ground. So we know we got a 40 plus ram. We know where he's living. The idea is to, okay, let's make a push on him with archery equipment. And I'm 14. I killed a double broom, little tiny, 30.5, I think is what he measured, but he's a big double broomer the year before on my second hunt, first sheep. And so I was just tickled pink just to get to go. I'm thinking, okay, we're going to get this big ram with a bow and end up finding him about 2.5 days in or 3 days in, and putting a good stock on this guy from base camp. And we're sitting on a big rim rock, and the ram is down on a little plateau, nice little bed down below us, about halfway down to the bottom. and it's earlier in the morning, so you got that thermal updraft as it starts to warm up. And I'm sitting at the top of the hill with my dad's hunting partner Mike, and we got this plan for backing him up with the gun. We're sitting at like 350 yards or something like that, and we just kind of over the next hour and a half or so watching my dad work his way down, get to where we think he's got to be getting pretty close to bow range. Like we're at 350 and we're ranging him at 250. It's like he's got to be getting close at this point. And so we're just watching through the scope, and this ram stands up. And I got my dad I can see him like outside of the scope, and then I'll go back in the scope and I'm looking at the ram and he goes full draw. And that's kind of when arrows started flying. So we don't know any details at this point, but we're watching him go full draw, and we're watching this ram jump down a couple rocks. Then we're watching him go full draw again. Can't hear the bow going off, can't see the bow going off really, but we're watching the ram super close, and he worked his way a couple of rocks down, jump, and he kind of steps up on this pinnacle. And Mike goes, "That's the last you're ever going to see him. You better let him have it." So, not seeing any arrows or anything, and this sheep squeeze the trigger off, boom, and he jumps off the last little rock into oblivion. Like, oh geez, man, felt like a good shot, but of course I'm like 14, I'm pretty young. So we start hiking down the hill and catch up to my dad, and I'm like, Dad, did I get him? He's like, "Oh, you got him." I'm like, "Oh yeah." He's like, but not before I had an arrow in him. And I'm like, "Oh God." I shot, thought I had shot this sheep right after my dad got an arrow in him or something. We're thinking this is number one, being, number one Pope and Young ram in the world potentially. And we take a few more steps down, and here's this ram laying here with this arrow sticking out of him. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like about ready to cry. And my dad, I think he kind of saw that, and he goes, "I'm just kidding." He pulls this broken arrow out of the bullet hole. Round. He's like, "I'm just kidding. You smoked him. I missed all 5 shots." He emptied his quiver and never got a good shot off. I think the first one was like a long poke. It was like a 65 downhill. It just wasn't. It was a better let it fly because I made it this far kind of situation. But yeah, I think that one sticks out in my head pretty good too. And that's still to this day my biggest ram. He was 42 square. Didn't carry the mass that you needed. He was 13 3/4 or something bases, and carried that okay, but just didn't have enough of it. I think he scored 165 or something. So not BNC all time, but it would have been a way up there as far. That would have been the new number 3 or 4 or something with a bow, but still, just that one sticks out in my head because I thought for sure that he had stuck an arrow in him, and I was going to be in trouble.
Who would think the thing that rattles you the most at the time is going to be the memory that probably makes that hunt stick out more than ever.
Exactly. No, that was a good one for sure. But then just any time we're in the mountains together is a good memory. I can think of funny parts of each hunter and memorable parts of each hunt. But that one in particular sticks out pretty good.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. Like you film your hunts, you put them on a YouTube channel. Has that always been a priority? Like,
no,
yeah.
Filming, my dad's kind of carried a camera around a little bit. He's got a lot of old footage of really cool stuff here in Alaska. You can start flying around in a Super Cub and doing beach combing and doing all these hunts all over the state. You get some really cool stuff. But I was thinking for a few years, as a young adult, I was like, man, we do enough cool stuff. We should really be filming this. I mean, we do some unique stuff in all aspects of my life, not just hunting and fishing, but gold mining and cabin building. And we ride snow machines in some of the most beautiful mountains in the world up here, and really just do some cool stuff. So I started filming just here a couple years ago, and it's been a steep learning curve. I still film everything on my iPhone, but getting into actually sharing the hunting stuff that we do with people from all over the world, it's actually real rewarding, and I enjoy doing it. And I like trying to put together the good filming, and it puts another aspect into the hunt, trying to get good footage and get the hunt on film makes it a little bit tougher. And that's cool too, because it's just getting to do something a little bit different. not just getting to enjoy that hunt, but then having it as a memory on film for the rest of your life too. It's just pretty neat.
Yeah, no, it's cool to go back on and like you say it's neat, and then your dad's packing around a camera and he has you at 4 years old shooting a black bear. Like that's pretty cool stuff to go back and look on. And that's actually how I stumbled across you the one time, was just on your reels, and it was a caribou hunt. So what is caribou kind of like, if we're gonna start naming top animals for you? I'm assuming sheep. If your dad's taken 40 and you've been there for a lot of them, you've taken some. Is caribou kind of close second to that, or?
Well, I think that sheep is definitely at the top as far as species. Like we're always going to be sheep hunters first and everything else second. But this year's caribou hunt, last year's caribou hunt, if you hit the caribou migration just right, where you're getting out in front of 5,000 head of animals or 10,000 head of animals that are strung out for 20 miles, and they're going to be crossing the gravel bar that you're camping on for the next week, that is probably one of my favorite hunts to go do. Like sheep hunting, you're packing, you're like hour 10 fully loaded. You're thinking, why do I do this to myself? This sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. That caribou hunt's way less pace, and it's a target rich environment where you're watching animals really close, and that is a lot of fun. That's one of my favorites. And just getting to watch, I could sit there for 2 weeks and just watch caribou, not even hunting, just filming and watching and seeing all the critters, because it is a neat thing, that caribou migration. If you get in the right spot and they're just walking in front of you for a week, you can't beat just hanging out in nature and seeing those animals move like that.
Yeah, I don't even, honestly, wouldn't even matter if I was hunting or just watching. I would want to see the migration so bad. It's on my bucket list. Like when we go out caribou hunting here, if you see a herd of 20, it's like, that's good numbers. It's a great sight for us.
Well, and sometimes that can be the way it is too, or it can be, you could have thousands of head walking by you every day, and then the next morning you wake up and there's not a single one. It's crazy. The some of the places that these caribou are, they're the only thing that's there at the time, and if you miss it by a day or they're gone the next day, that place is just like a wasteland. There's not very many moose. There's lots of predators, but you don't really get to see them too often. So it's kind of unique to hit it just right. If you do get lucky to do it that way, then it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Do you have a caribou hunt that sticks out in your mind? Like, you've got some dandies through your pages there.
Yeah, no, I got anytime you hit the migration just right, and you're getting lots and lots of animals, you're going to have some super close encounters. And I got, I don't know, half dozen super close encounters. Our video we put out this year on the channel, we got one of those on film, which was really cool. But we've got way more off camera than we do on camera. So I can think of one we're always trying to bow hunt caribou, just because it's a target rich environment. It's easy to shoot a caribou with a bow. It's really hard to shoot the caribou with a bow. So we kind of usually shoot one in between, and we try to get a nice mature bull with the archery equipment is the goal. But I was all for crawling through the brush just on a super slow pace. Just move the bow forward 1.5 feet and then move 1.5 feet, because I had a herd bedded down on the other side of this brush. I don't know. I had the closest animals that were in bow range at 40 yards, but you're trying to shoot the bull so you can see the tops of the big mature bulls out there farther, and just trying to get as close as you can through the brush. So when they go to stand up, you might be able to kind of stand up out of this brush and get a thought, or a shot was my idea. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just working my way through this brush, moving the bow 1 foot, crawling, because you're so close, you don't want to make too much noise. But then you kind of start hearing all these caribou get up and start moving. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. All right, got an arrow knocked. I'm like, okay. And I'm sitting on all fours still, and I'm just watching with my eyeballs as these caribou start to get up through the brush. And that's when I kind of hear like this brush tick. And I kind of do this number and look over to the left, and I'm sitting in a little bit less thick of this brush section. And I got this cow walking right down this less thick brush section that I'm all fours sitting in the front of. So I'm like, okay, this is not going to be good. She's going to blow up and all these caribou are going to be gone. And so I just locked still as I could be, and just watched her out of the corner of my eye. And she would take a couple steps, feed. And, she starts getting close enough now where I can see the wrinkles on her nose where she's grabbing lichen and stuff on the ground. I'm like, oh God. And I'm still just on all fours, and she's getting closer and closer, and she's within 5 yards. And I'm starting to panic. I'm like, when she blows up, she's gonna run me right over, because I'm in the only like partway open portion of this brush. I'm like, I'm gonna get trampled by a caribou. And she just kept walking, take a step, eat, take a step, eat, take a step. And her nose got right to my hand, and she put her lips on my hand and was sniffing me. That's when she picked that up. And when she did that, I jumped like this, and she took off the other way. But literally had a cow caribou sniff my hand trying to get close to these bulls. And I was just like freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, my heart's pumping. And then the biggest bull the whole week's walking by me out there at about 70 yards. I'm like, and I'm like, range. He's on the walk. And I went full draw just to kind of feel, and it was just not a good shot. It was a 70-yard walking, but biggest bull I think I've probably ever seen in my life still, but just kind of got screwed up from that cow literally sniffing my hand the second before. It was pretty nuts. And now we've gotten that close where we could reach out and touch them several times. Pretty much you get that opportunity once if you hit the migration right on a weekend hunt or a 3 or 4 day hunt, and there's nothing more exciting than that, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's pretty intense, man. Like, I don't know, I've been close to a few animals, but I haven't had them come up and actually touch it. Like, that's one that's gonna burn in your mind forever.
Yeah, I definitely will.
When you're hunting caribou with the bow, what weights, broadheads are you using, or mechanical fixed?
So when I first started shooting archery when I was real young, I shot a Muzzley 3-blade 100 grain, and I eventually upgraded to a Muzzley 3-blade 125, and I have never changed. They're not known to be like the mega super expensive broadhead, and people joke about them like, oh, Muzzy bad to the bone, because that's as far as they go, they hit the bone. But I've killed moose, caribou, black-tailed deer on Kodiak Island with them, lots of javelina in Arizona, chasing all kinds of stuff with those Muzzies. And it's hard to change away from something that works. If it works for you, why switch? And you can still buy a 6-pack of Muzzy 125s for like $50, and you can't touch a 3-pack for $50 anymore of any other brand. So that's just kind of what I stick with. I shoot Matthews bows, and I got a Triax. I don't get the newest bow every year. I think you're well better off to practice more and do more hunting than to buy the fanciest gear every year. I can remember at like 14 taking my bow hunter education class, and I had a Hoyt at that time that was 10 years old, and I was in that class. We have a bunch of military bases in Fairbanks where I live, and it was all these young military guys, and they all had these brand new bows. And the one guy was like, oh yeah, see that bow? That's my next bow. And I'm like 14 thinking, I think I've killed way more critters with my bow than all these guys in this class. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is just get equipment that works, and you don't really got to change it if it works. You just got to practice more and get more opportunities.
Yeah, how's that saying go? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is for me anyway.
What's your like when you're preparing for these hunts? Are most of them fly-ins? Or are you doing hike-ins, backpacks?
Most of them are fly-ins. I've done several like 4-wheeler trips or whatever. We have a local caribou herd that's kind of close to town, the 40-mile herd. That's one that's super popular. It's kind of like a combat hunt, but I've done that growing up with friends just because it's close to town. Jump in the truck and drive up there and hop on your 4-wheeler and ride some trails and whatnot. But it's mostly just been growing up in the backseat of the Super Cub. I've done a handful of hunts in Kodiak on my own now that are, I'm chartering an aircraft out of Kodiak City to a different part of the island or wherever you're going. There's a couple islands there you can hunt. I've done that a few times, but you're pretty spoiled in the Super Cub when your dad's a ace pilot. So besides those few examples, it's basically in the backseat of the Cub.
Yeah, right on. When you go to a place like Kodiak, what are you chasing?
So Kodiak for residents, anyways, got brown bears if you can draw a tag. It's got goats. It's got Sika black-tailed deer, and we're mostly going there for deer hunting. Goats is a bonus. I've drawn one brown bear tag on Kodiak and was not successful. Just couldn't close the deal. And then they got a few Roosevelt elk on a couple of those surrounding islands there. Most people don't know that we have elk in Alaska, but we do got some transplant Roosevelts that are, they don't grow nearly as big as they do down in the lower 48 or whatnot, but we got a few of them.
No, that's cool. I didn't know there was rosies up there. Is that a tag? The rosies?
Yeah. So that's a drawn tag. And they do have registration hunts. So like if they don't fill their quota for the regular drawn permit hunts, they'll put a registration tag out there. And I've never done either one. I apply every year because it's something I haven't hunted in Alaska. So, but yeah, it's pretty competitive to get a draw tag for Roosevelt elk, and it's really, really known to be a very, very difficult hunt. Where they live on Raspberry Islands, just uber thick brush, never going to see them. Brown bears running everywhere, few deer on top of that. It can be a really, really difficult hunt, especially if you're not used to backpack hunting. But I've never put but a couple animals on a four-wheeler. Otherwise, it's always been on my back. Most people that are in Alaska, they're all hunting with Argos or side-by-sides or four-wheelers or pickups or whatever. Most guys think we're crazy for throwing moose hams in a backpack and packing them back to the runway.
I get you gambling with bears a little bit more than a lot of people do with, places like Kodiak when you're chasing blacktails, and the paths that you need to take are the ones that the bears made.
Yeah, we got some photos of that, deer hunting, and you're standing in a 4-foot wide, highway through the grass, and you're like, yeah, the deer aren't making this path. It does. You're always keeping an eye over your shoulder. I've never ran into any real bad problem bears, but had bears that were curious and close to camp. Those ones are ones are going to be a problem. But I've never had any real bad bear issues. We've killed a few in moose camp just because anytime you're in one of your hunting camps and you're seeing predators, you try to put the smack on them if you can. Seen them sheep hunting. One time we did. I guess we kind of had a bear issue at one point. Butchering my dad's only archery ram. I made him leave his rifle at the tent. I'm like, Dad, you're never gonna kill him with a bow if you keep packing a rifle up the mountain. And so we finally got it done, and we're butchering this sheep, and this mom and two sows comes over the saddle we're standing in with no weapon whatsoever besides a bow. Like, oh crap, that was dumb. Elbow deep, But it does, especially like Kodiak. You're in the big brown bear capital of the world, and you're just always looking over your shoulder. Like it makes you a little bit nervous, but they're usually more scared of you than you are of them, anyways.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that's probably one of your most intense moments. Then, if you got no gun and mom and cubs come wandering by,
that one gets your heart beating. That's for sure. Lucky she was a sow with cubs and not a lone aggressive hungry boar, because then we would have had to sacrifice that sheep at least to him, or I don't know, what that would have been like, but definitely one that got your heart beating.
Yeah, if they want it, it's theirs at that point.
Exactly. Yeah, and you hear all kinds of bear stories. You hear more horror bear stories than actual people dealing with bears in a bad way, but they're definitely out there.
With so much experience in the Alaska and all the places you get to fly to, do you have particular places just in Alaska that like you still really want to go and try to hunt in?
Yeah, so my dad has never gotten me, just because of my work schedule and stuff, and springtime being busy as summer rolls around, the place thaws out and you got all kinds of stuff to do. But I've never hunted the peninsula for brown bears. And that's something that not isn't necessarily a draw tag for residents. They usually have an open tag for residents without having to draw every other fall or spring. So he's done that a lot, and I've never gotten the opportunity to do that hunt. And that'd be a fun one before my old man gets too old. Go down there on the peninsula. The problem is you got to pick like a 10-day window to go do it, and you got to hope for good weather, and you're going to have some bad weather, and there's a lot of flying. So there's a lot of things that suck about that kind of a hunt, but you also get to do some beach combing and look for dead stuff on the beach and stuff like that. That's cool. And I've done some of that out west, done on muskox hunts when I was younger, but never done that lower peninsula brown bear stuff.
Well, now that you've mentioned muskox, have you taken a muskox?
Yeah. I've got one muskox I drew when I was younger, and then a couple years later, my dad drew that same tag, and we went and got to go on that hunt too. So I've been around a couple of dead muskox, and those are some cool critters, man. Hunting an ice age critter is just something a little bit different. They're not particularly smart or difficult to hunt, but it's just something cool that's different to go do. The same animal's been walking around for 40,000 years. You're like, that's neat.
Yeah, they're an impressive animal, and where they manage to thrive. It blows me away.
Yep.
Do you have it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I work on the north slope of the very top of Alaska in the oil field, and I was driving around the pad one day on night shift, middle of the winter. It was blowing, it was cold, it was dark, and one of them things was right in front of my headlights as I was coming around the corner. I was like, holy crap. And they're out there digging through the snow and just feeding. It doesn't matter what time of day or whatever in that country. They are some tough animals for sure. They live in inhospitable country for sure.
And it's on a draw system. Is it a pretty tough draw to get, or is it just pure luck?
Yeah, it's all the draws in Alaska are a lottery system. We don't have a bonus point system or anything like that. It's like you're buying a lottery ticket. And yeah, they're very, very difficult to draw. It's another one I put in for every year, and I haven't drawn in like 15 years now. So it's tough. And there's different hunts that have better odds, but I'm putting in for Nunivak Island muskox just because it's this desolate island in the middle of the Bering Sea, and I want to go experience that part of it, going out to somewhere that go as far away from anything as you can just to go hunt muskox. There's some easier hunts, there's some closer hunts, there's some hunts that are on the road system, but I'm putting in for the nasty, gnarly wintertime one because I think it'd be more fun to have that experience to go do it.
Go and suffer for the ox a little bit.
Exactly. Yep. We got our fingers crossed. Hopefully we get to do that here soon.
Now, would your old man be able to fly into that one too, or would you have to charter to get there?
He could. He's done that before. It's a lot of open water with an airplane on tires, and there's really only one place to land on that island that's not in the village itself. So I would probably charter my way into there for that one, just for the fact that it's kind of a difficult thing to go do in an airplane on your own.
Yeah. Little
and comfort. He cusses and swears at me for even putting in for that tag. He's like, why are you putting in for that tag? Put in for the slope tag or whatever. I'm like, no, that's what I want to go do, is go do that hunt and say I've done it. So
it's yeah, that sounds familiar sometimes.
Yeah.
But just diving back into just backcountry in general for you is like what's an unexpected lesson that you've had to learn? Like you're branching out all across Alaska. You're chasing brown bear, ox, caribou, sheep. Like there's got to be some lessons you can share with folks like us that don't get to live that as much as you.
Yeah, I can think of a couple. It's funny because I grew up so lucky with my dad to be able to teach me and learn a lot of lessons through him you never realized you had to learn. I learned a few difficult ones branching out on my first few hunts by myself or with friends and stuff, where I was the most experienced person leading my friends who hadn't done this nearly like I had. And one of those was in Valdez, the first time I ever ran the boat really by myself. We've always had a family family boat. We've had the same boat for 27 years. We kept in Valdez for fishing in the summertime. And so first time I think I'd ever run it by myself. I think I was like 18. We were like seniors in high school, and my one buddy was a sophomore or junior in high school, and we went down deer hunting. It opens August 1st in Prince William Sound, and we were instructed to bring the boat back when we're done. And I think I learned about 10 lessons in this one weekend. But we run out to an island and we anchor up in a bay that I've anchored up in before, and all's going well. No, actually, I skipped the first part of the story. We load the boat with way too much crap because 3 kids and don't really know any better. We had full of gas with extra gas, all of our junk, and go to leave harbor and spin a prop on the hub. It would never wouldn't get on step. And I'm like, what the hell's going on with this thing? Got to call Dad. Dad goes, oh, it sounds like you spun a prop. You're going to need to find a prop in town. So we spent the first day looking for a prop, pulled the boat out of the water, put a new prop on it, put it back in the water, and then took off the next day. Okay, we figured it. We got this down, put the biggest guy in the front of the boat so we can get on step. And then we go anchor up on this island. Next day, we paddle the dinghy to shore, drag it up on shore, and all right, let's go deer hunt. Run all over the mountain. Don't see any bucks. This is one of the more popular islands, so lots of does, but not a lot of bucks. And we had pulled the dinghy up at the very kind of outside edge of the bay, and we hiked all the way over the mountain and dropped back down into the head of the bay. And so I could see all the way down to where the dinghy was, and it was about, 7 feet off of the bank. Tide had just picked it up and was just starting to float it off when we popped into the head of it. Oh, okay. So I took off on the dead run. And by the time I got there, it was probably 100 yards offshore. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I just strip down to my underwear and swim for the thing out in the freaking Gulf of Alaska. So I got pictures of that, soaking wet in my underwear, paddling my boat. My buddies are laughing at me. And then we switched islands, hiked to the top of a different island the next day, shoot a buck, and get 180 degrees turned around. I did. My friend's like, I think the boat's down there. I'm like, no, we just hiked up this hill right here. We just shot this deer. We're going to go right back down. And we drug this deer off the wrong side of the island. And got to the very bottom where this bay is supposed to open up. I know what it's supposed to look like. The boat's supposed to be anchored right there. And it's not there. Okay. We think we're one bay off. So we're going to go around this bay and hop this little ridge and go look at the next bay. And we go around and we hop in, and there's not even a bay on that side. It's just a big rocky cliffside. I'm like, okay, this is good. Back to the top of the mountain. And at this point, we're just day packs, eating huckleberries and drinking creek water. And then we're 10 hours in, late in the afternoon on the top of the mountain with 1 bar of service. Dad, help me. Where am I? Able to get one phone call out to him. And he said, where are you at? I said, I'm at Eleanor Island. I put the boat in that same bay that we always camp in on Eleanor Island. He's like, all right, turn around and tell me what you can see. And I turn around. Okay, I see a big flat island. He's like, is there a thinner, skinnier island in front of it? I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's Montague and Green Island. I'm like, okay. He's like, turn 180 degrees around the other way. And that's when I knew I was in trouble, as I turned right around the way that I had thought was, that my friend Logan had said, I think the boat's that way. Turned around that way, and he says, you see that little pinnacle of rocks with the island off of the pinnacle? He's like, I say, yep. He's like, the boat's in the bay to the left of that. I'm like, oh. And so now we're tired, hungry. We had left that deer at the first bay that we drug it down to because we didn't have game bags or nothing. We weren't going to hike it back up the mountain. This is really, really steep coastal Alaska. Like, this is vertical stuff. And so we start working our way to the bay that we know the boat's in now. And we had gone up the bay in the very, very head of it, and the very, very back of it where the trail we had gone up. And so that's, we knew that was a way to get down, but the way where we were sitting on the mountain, we were going to end up kind of way towards the mouth of the bay. And we had started working our way down towards that mouth of that bay, and ended up kind of getting cliffed out because it's so vertical that we had about a 60-foot cliff that we were working our way along the edge of, trying to find a way down to it. And we could not ever find that spot where we were going to work our way through it. So we're in the dark at this point, maybe like 14 hours on the mountain, huckleberries and creek water. And we have one little tiny, my buddy's like a welder apprentice. So he's got a little inspection flashlight for looking inside stuff. And I'm leading us on this cliff edge with this little light, trying to find a way down. And I trip on a log and I grab the last tree on the edge of this cliff, and this light goes off into the abyss, like gone. And now we're in the dark. I'm holding on to this tree on the edge of this 60-foot cliff. And luckily it was kind of clear where we had a little bit of moonlight to work by, but we said, okay, screw this. We're not going to go down any farther. And we started working our way along that cliff and finally found a tree that was close enough to the cliff that was growing on the ground below it. And so we had to jump from the cliff to the tree and shimmy down the tree and then run all the way down back to the ocean. And I think on that trip, I learned so many lessons as far as the boat, as far as navigating, as far as knowing exactly where you're at before you're on top of a mountain, never going anywhere without at least a tarp, if not a tarp and a sleeping bag, a way to make fire, some food, some more water, without that kind of stuff. But I don't travel anywhere now without a GPS and without a few essentials where you're not gonna be miserable. Because at one point my buddies are just, every time we stop, they're laying down and ready to sleep. I'm like, we're not sleeping on this mountain right now. This is not gonna be good. And we finally got, by the time we got on the boat and started shoveling some food in our mouths and fired up the sat phone and called my dad, he's like, you're lucky, because I was about to call the Coast Guard and have them go start looking for you, because it would not have been good to have been soaking wet and sleeping on top of that mountain. That would have not have been a good situation. So I think I learned about a dozen lessons that whole weekend. But
yeah, it's a valuable trip.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Is it safe to say that there's one piece of gear you don't leave behind now, and it's a GPS?
Yeah, that trip and one trip riding snow machines where the weather socked in and we got lost in the weather. That one too was like, okay, you need a GPS that you can see where the valleys and the creeks are, and you can see where you're supposed to be going home, because at least you have a direction and you're not just fumbling around in the fog, And we've done that sheep hunting without a GPS, where you just got to sit tight, wait for the weather to clear, because otherwise you're going to get yourself in a bad position trying to walk out when you can't see anything.
Yeah, that's a life lesson on there, and man,
yep.
Some good advice. Do you have any people listening to your advice on that one? Do you have any other advice for someone that's looking to get into hunting in the backcountry, or
man,
a special piece for them?
If you're looking to start, find somebody that's done it for a really long time. Find somebody that can teach you, because if you're trying to start from scratch, it's definitely tough. It's not impossible, but it's definitely tough. Find somebody that has done it before and knows what they're doing, and hopefully they're willing to give you a lending hand. And that's kind of our responsibility as hunters too, especially guys, if we have a lot of experience and somebody comes to you that wants some advice or something like that, try to at least point them in the right direction. Like, I would try this, I would talk to this person, this is what I would do. I get guys all the time that shoot me a message and want to know where to go hunting. I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you my spot, but I'll definitely tell you what I think would be a good hunt to try. A lot of guys in the lower 48 not knowing where to start, and there's lots of opportunity to come up to Alaska and do some crazy hunts. And so I try to give them the best advice that I can as far as where to start, who to call, which outfitters are bad, and which ones I've heard are good, or which guy to go flying with.
Those are always good pieces of advice that people are always looking for.
Yep.
Well, we're going to go deep on this question then, following on the mentorship side of things. Is that kind of what you would like the legacy you leave behind as a hunter to be remembered?
Yeah, I mean, what hunting for me at this point is just getting to really spend time with my old man while he's still able to do it. Once he's gone or unable to do it, I don't know what, it'll be a little bit, hunting will be definitely different for me. I enjoy sharing the hunts on YouTube, and obviously I like that part of it, like to talk to people about it, like to share that kind of stuff. I never really thought of what I want to leave behind as far as the hunting goes. I don't think guiding's ever in my forte, but I think something like that, being able to share knowledge and show people exactly how cool it can be and what we can do if you're willing to put in the work. I think I like that idea.
That's that's awesome. It's a cool way to look at it, and most of us strive to do similar. You know, Kyle and all his age and wisdom's always mentoring and giving pieces of advice when he can, and so I'm bringing the kids along, and Kyle just realized what I said. He's smirking now.
No, it certainly isn't. I'm not experienced sheep hunter like you, or certainly well, and your dad, right? And but Thomas, I think that you brought up something really important. Is that as a community, we have to do a better job of shepherding and mentoring in our community, because I feel like in BC we've had a real issue with a lot of young rams being killed and stuff, and sitting here listening to your perspective and your dad and your approach to sheep hunting, and you talk about farming sheep, and people probably don't even understand what you're saying there, but basically, taking care of the land and making sure that those sheep are there for eternity, and harvesting the old mature rams. And like I feel like that mentorship piece is critical, because that's something your dad's given you. You'll never forget that. And you're going to give that to the next person that you talk to about hunting, and about sheep hunting. And it's so critical with our sheep, especially now too, with all the pressure and everything. And then these guys are out here taking real young rams, and sometimes they're even legal, but it's maybe questionable on whether or not they should be harvested from a conservation perspective. So, hey man, I think it's super cool. My hat's off to you and your old man for that mentorship. And I think as a community, we got to keep that up. And that's really inspiring. And I watched that film with your dad, the 40th, his 40th ram, and it was really inspiring, and just just amazing that someone could do that, but also have that conservation ethic, and really making sure that the next generation understands the importance of taking old mature rams and making sure that there's some left on the mountain too, right?
Yeah, definitely. That video is a little more emotional than some of the other ones we put together, but and exactly what you're saying is very true. Just passing that kind of knowledge down, because as far as sheep hunters go, like most people you talk to, they're so happy to have taken any sheep, and there's so many guys out there doing it now. It makes it pretty tough to do when there's not a lot of legal rams left on the hill, and a lot of these places or none at all, or the ones that are getting shot are the ones that are legal that year. You can find a spot that doesn't get picked on as well, and keep track of them, and wait till they get old, being patient, and end up like my dad, where you've killed a lot of 40-inch sheep, and a lot of sheep in general over your career.
That's cool. Aside from your own personal conservation work that you guys do when it comes to the farming of the sheep, basically, are there any other conservation causes or groups in Alaska that you're involved with, or passionate about, or recommend to folks to look into?
Definitely, especially if you're in Alaska, you need to look into the Resident Hunters of Alaska. It's they're kind of on the side of the sport hunters and the father sons, and the wanting to take their grandkids, and on the opposite side of the guides. Unfortunately, like our board of game here in Alaska has got a lot of guide influence on it, a lot of guides on the board, and we, as people that live here, we hate to see people from out of states that are legal guides that come up and guide guys from out of state, and take away opportunities from guys like me. I have lots of friends that are guides, and have that's how they make their living, but it's something that kind of hurts you as a sport hunter, especially when you're competing with people from out of state for harvesting sheep for money, basically, not for the enjoyment or spending time with your dad in the mountains or whatever you're doing. So that part kind of hurts you a little bit, but that's one thing that Resident Hunters of Alaska is kind of pushes for is, hey, we're here to harvest these sheep in Alaska from, the state's here to manage the game for the residents of the state, not so much for whoever has the biggest pocketbook, So that's one I would look into, especially if you're in Alaska.
Yeah. What's it take for an out of state person to come and hunt in Alaska? Is it guide only?
Yeah, so in Alaska, it's guide only for mountain goats, Dall sheep, and brown bear. And yeah, Dall sheep hunts are expensive nowadays. Any guided hunting, I think anywhere. I think you guys probably got us beat as far as price. Like stone sheep hunts over there in Canada are ridiculous, but
I
but
don't know. It cost me about $80.
yeah, yep, yeah. See, our sheep tags for residents are over the counter for free. So, but
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
out of state for sheep and goats and brown bears. It's all has to be done with a guide.
Hmm.
But everything else you can come up and I can point you in the right direction to go chase caribou with your bow for sure. It's kind of harder to find easy access without flying somewhere to rifle hunt caribou, but there's lots of opportunities for that as well.
Well, you know a pilot, so we're good.
Yeah.
Now, with kind of my last parting question, I guess, so to speak. If you can hunt anywhere in the world, where would it be and what would you be hunting?
It'd have to be New Zealand. Go chase tar in the mountains down there. I don't think there's any country or any place in the world that's more similar to Alaska and what you can do and how the style of hunting than there is, public land. New Zealand would really be interesting to me. I think there's a lot of high fence stuff there that isn't the same, but there's a lot of you can go to New Zealand, you can charter an R-44 Robinson helicopter, just like you can charter a Super Cub here in Alaska. You can get dropped off somewhere and you can go DIY mountain critter hunting, multiple different species, and in a wild place. I think that would be really neat. It would be cool to be able to do stone sheep or bighorns and stuff in Canada and stuff like that, but it's so similar to Alaska. I think I'd just go as far opposite spectrum as I could and do something like that. And New Zealand would really interest me. None of that high fence stuff. I'm not into any of that really for the most part, but some DIY, drop me off in the mountains in New Zealand would be pretty cool.
Have you looked into New Zealand for hunting?
I have a little bit. The problem it just the conflicted time with my spring snow machine schedule for riding in the mountains. That one always kind of gets me, but it's on the bucket list. It's gonna happen eventually for sure. I've had some good friends of my dad have done it DIY style like that, and really encouraged. Like said, it was a great hunt. Definitely highly recommended. So it's on the bucket list. I hope in the next 5 years or so my dad can go with me, try to plan a trip to go do that would be neat.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. My brother got to do it a few years back in public land with his buddy that lives in Christchurch, and it was experience of a lifetime for him.
Yep. I can, yeah, jealous, super jealous.
It's interesting you bring that out. Shout out to Nick who listens to the podcast. He sent me a message. I guess we talked about this on the podcast, and Nick reached out. And he's from New Zealand, and he said, "Hey, if you want to hunt chamois or Himalayan tar, they're the same hills as the chamois, and New Zealand's great for it. Tons of public access." No hunting seasons, tags or permits are free in thousands of acre public land. So great trailheads, great access. Some guys use helicopters. And he said December to May is the time to go. Great temperatures, weather's awesome, and the rut's March to May. So he said you don't need an outfitter, you just need a good attitude and have to be in shape, which I'll have to do a little bit of work there. But it sounds like an awesome hunt. So thanks for Nick for reaching out to us. I got to get back to him on that, but really cool. It'd be really neat to go down there. I'm with you too. I think it'd be awesome to go down there on a hunt for sure, Thomas. So
sounds like the right guy to talk to. Need somebody to bug on social media. Hey, I want to come do this. Where direction should I go?
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. Great email to get. I haven't got back to Nick yet, but thanks for reaching out, Nick. I really appreciate it. So cool.
That's always neat when you get the listeners from abroad. Where can people follow your stories there, and what's the best place to tag along with your adventures?
Well, you just type in backcountry Alaska into pretty much any social media. I'm on Instagram probably the most, and then the main focus is the YouTube channel, Backcountry Alaska on YouTube. You can watch all the stuff there. You can find my social media tags on that YouTube channel as well. And yeah, any support that you guys could give me, it's just every little bit helps, and I'm going to continue to do it because I like doing it.
Perfect. Well, thanks for taking time out of your evening and coming on and chatting with us. I know we're not the greatest, but
Oh no,
we're here for a good time, anyways.
it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to meet you guys, and it was really nice getting to talk to people. Always nice talking shop with other hunters.
Um, Before I let you go, this has been burning. I gotta ask you about it. So, we're hearing about all the declines up in Alaska on sheep, and Dall sheep are struggling. Populations are down, some cases 25+%. What are you seeing on there? Like you talked a little bit about kind of taking that last ram on the hill, last legal ram, and there's a there's hunter pressure on there. But obviously we know like a lot of these are climate affected events, like lots of icing, and I think there's some drought going on and that sort of stuff. So what are you seeing on the landscape, and I guess what would your old man sort of reflect on that too as well, Thomas? Just curious.
Well, they say it's weather related and a lot of freezing rain and stuff, hard for them to get feed. And I think a lot of it can be things that we can do better. We can hunt predators harder than we do now, because you watch, there's some really good documentaries. The one I'm thinking of is This Is My Alaska. It's an old DVD documentary from Roy Schiebel in the 1960s. He was one of the original master guides in Alaska, and they would shoot the heck out of predators all year round, trying to put a dampener on that stuff. And I just don't, I see a lot of hunting stuff on, with social media. Everybody shares their stuff. You can see what people are hunting, and people aren't shooting predators like they used to in this state. I think that's something we could do better. And then again, my guide buddies would say, oh, shooting mature legal rams isn't affecting the population at all. But, there's there's about 300 rams a year killed in Alaska. Well, that's 300 more mature sheep that aren't on the mountain. So it makes a difference too. Not just, it's not quite a spread like you see everywhere else as far as sheep hunting. There aren't 10% of the take going to non-residents. It's a lot closer to 50-50 as far as who's killing the sheep in this state as far as residents to non-residents. So I think weather, obviously nothing you can do about that, but we could sure knock the hell out of the predators. And then there's still a lot of hunting pressure out there, especially as it gets to be more popular.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, it's tough. I think there's lots of pressures on wild sheep, and they seem to get it on all angles, right? Like it just is nonstop. But I did see like the harvest stats on Alaska, and the numbers were significantly higher years ago, and they've dropped a lot in the last few years here. And hopefully they come around. And we hear it lots, like, and I don't know, but like a guy like your dad probably seen it. Like, I don't know, you'd be curious to talk to him. He's been doing it for 45 years now, to see like, is there cycles where there's like ebbs and flows of really strong populations, and then they drop off. And I feel like there are cycles out there. It seems to be like it's not a continuous dwindling that sheep go through peaks and valleys.
I think he's got such a wealth of knowledge on the historical aspect of it compared to what I got, just because he's been completely obsessed with it for 45 years for one. But then he has, like you say, he has seen it, and it's a lot slower of a cycle than you would think. They really did get the peak of it in the late 70s, 80s, 90s, whereas some of the first herds of sheep my dad was seeing was sheep's herds of 65 rams in one hunt, and the top 10 are all in the 40-inch range down to that particular area in the Alaska Range where I used to hike into. Now is every squeaker legal ram is killed by somebody. And so it's just kind of it's a flow that he says, I won't see it in my lifetime. This is my dad saying that, but you might get to see him come back in your lifetime, because they had that same height and drop and height again from the early 1900s. Some of the first people hunting in Alaska, and then a big drop in the 40s, I want to say, and then a population climb back in the 70s and 80s. So I think it'll be again for us, but I think we're 20, 25, 30 years behind it, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Oh, that's awesome, man. Appreciate the insight there. So the one last question for you. Is your goal to eclipse the old man? Are you going to be like, 41 rams? Is that the goal or what?
Yeah, it would be tough. I'm gonna go sheep hunting every year, and I just enjoy going with my dad so much. I don't know if I have that same intensity that he does for it. I I'm just as happy to pack his 40th ram as I would have been to shoot my own ram this year. I didn't get to take a sheep this year because that was the only shooter we could find, right? But I was more happy to see him get his 40th than for me to have to shoot one, where he's a little bit opposite. Last year we killed one ram together, and he went and hunted for another week and a half by himself and killed a ram solo by himself at 60 years old. So I don't know if I'll be that guy. I might be, I don't know, but I'm definitely going to be going every year regardless.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, congrats to you. Congrats to your old man. And I really appreciated that film. It was just awesome to watch. I love I just love the genuineness of it. Like you could tell the father-son relationship, and felt like there was almost like a passing of the torch in that too. Like your old man kind of realizes he's getting to the end of his career on the hunting end of things. It was really well done. Yeah, hats off to you guys both.
I really appreciate it. That's what we try to focus on, is just being as real and as genuine as possible. You're not going to see any fancy editing or music or over the top bull snot on my channel. You're just going to see it exactly how it is and exactly how we do it.
No TikTok dances on the tops of mountains?
No, nothing like that. Not at all.
Appreciate it, man.
This episode is sponsored by our conservation partner, Frontiersman Gear. Thank you, Sitka Gear and Frontiersman Gear, for investing in healthy wildlife and sustainable ecosystems.